I just cannot believe that it has been 5 years of this. 5! That's 267 drum streams with over 7,600 songs played from over 350 lovely folks. That's a whole lot of fun in 5 years. Another thing that's brought me a lot of joy over the past 5 years? Indie games. And that's what we're celebrating here tonight. And to do that, because we know
5 is right out!
We're going to be counting down my top 50 indie games of all time. Now, I had Dr. Steal Your Face make this lovely logo right here. It's a lovely logo. But this also came with it. We're going to watch it again. We're watching it again. Yep, and we're going to see it again in a little bit. First of all, Doctor, thank you for making that, and Jazula, thank you for helping with that by bringing the incredible sound design. Look at these gambling members go. I've played way more indie games than AAA games in the past 5 years, and they've just really, really grown on me. I've loved indie games since I played my first one nearly 20 years ago, and I just want to take a little time to celebrate these awesome games, and obviously also their music. Don't worry, there's going to be plenty of drams later. I really need to thank each and every one of you for making these past 5 years seriously the best 5 years of my life. Having this, having you guys in the community coming together every Thursday and for record streams and random video game streams, all of it. It has literally changed my life. I cannot thank you enough. So let's have a little fun celebrating 5 whole dang years. Kick back, enjoy a few honorable mentions, and then we're going to get to my top 50 of all time. And then we're drumming. I freaking love it here.
Let's start where it all began. Back on the PS3, that game company introduced me to the existence of indie games in general with the release of Flow. The concept isn't anything new. Eat things that are smaller than you, avoid being eaten by things bigger than you. but the visual and audio style pulled me in right away with its minimalist yet sharp-looking graphics and my introduction to sweet, sweet Austin Wintory and his lovely chill score. I loved this game right away, and it was the perfect way to dive into the indie game scene. One of the more recently released games to make this list is Last Time I Saw You. Admittedly, this game normally wouldn't have been on my radar, but with Larissa Okada at the helm for the soundtrack, you can be sure I wasn't gonna miss it. Little did I know that this game would be exactly what I needed when it was released. I was in a bit of a mental and emotional rut when I got the ping that this game had just gone live. Without hesitation, I installed it and fired it up, and upon completing it, I just felt better. The art, the music, the writing, everything came together perfectly in this lovely narrative adventure. A nice reminder that you may just find a little peace in something you normally wouldn't consider jumping into. This one is so weird and so cool. In Superliminal, it's all about perspective. Literally. It takes an interesting twist to get me to try a puzzle game, and boy, does this one have a fun twist. Manipulating objects within the environment feels so natural, fluid, and brain-breaking all at once. This game encourages you to luxuriate and play around with its various puzzle types, making you rethink how you see everything. And it's a little creepy at times too, so that's fun. The Artful Escape is exactly what the title says. It's a gorgeous, artfully crafted escape from the troubles of the real world. You play as the son of a legendary musician, trying to find your place in the world while dealing with the pressure of living up to the success of your old man. Father? Throughout your journey, you meet dozens of hilarious and adorable characters, glide your way through beautiful vistas, and bring your musical talents to the edges of the galaxy and beyond. Quite an escape, if you ask me. It isn't very often that a game will pull me back if I gave up on it because my dumb brain couldn't figure it out. It's even less often that a game will pull me back after starting and giving up twice. But Manifold Garden is that game, and I'm so glad that it was. This is a visual and audio feast, featuring yet another incredible soundtrack by Larissa Okada. I am definitely not great at puzzle games, so every time I managed to unlock the various paths, I felt like I was the smartest man in the world. Plus, it's just a lot of fun to jump into the abyss and fall forever. I love a game where you feel totally isolated. No NPCs to point you in the right direction, no blatant visual indicators, just you, the environment, and in this case, a rickety sailboat sandcrawler thingy that's as much of a character as the little hooded creature you control. Keeping the boat moving requires a bit of inventory and base management that normally isn't my jam in games. But the Far series does a great job of taking away the normal frustrations I have with gameplay like that. Lone Sails has several surprising moments that made me gasp with delight, and its beautiful art and soundtrack sealed the deal, making this a lovely and memorable ride. There certainly isn't a lack of cozy games on this list, and Tome is a really great one. This adorable game takes you on a trip around town while you hone your amateur photography skills. The last game I ever played that used a camera for combat was Fatal Frame, and I can assure you, your time behind the lens is far less terrifying in Tome. In fact, there's no combat at all, just a whole bunch of cute NPCs that either love or hate being in the spotlight. It's a pretty swell time. The second release from indie developer Supergiant Games was a real doozy. I love when developers take risks and try different genres with each of their games. Coming off the action-heavy Bastion, Transistor leaned into a more cinematic style, offering a slick and accessible action RPG. I typically am not drawn to games with strategy-based combat, but this one scratched an itch I didn't know needed scratching. And you can be sure that sweet Darren Korb's soundtrack elevated every second of this game perfectly. That game company's offerings to the indie world are some of my most beloved games ever made. So when their contract with Sony ran its course, and one of the main designers split off to start their new company, Giant Squid, I definitely tempered my expectations when first firing up Abzu. Thankfully, all those expectations were shattered and replaced with pure elation and wonder. And Austin Wintory! This game is freaking gorgeous and an absolute delight to luxuriate in. With the perfect amount of collectibles and lore spaced throughout, Abzu gives you the perfect balance of challenge and casual exploration. Another delightfully cozy game. Much like its title suggests, A Short Hike is very much just that. Look at this cute little beard going out on a big adventure. While most gamers are trying to get good at Miyazaki masterpieces, I'm at a point in my gaming life where I just want to get good at casually flapping about and peacefully making my way to the tippy top of a lovely mountain. And boy did I! If hiking in real life is daunting for you, take a load off and spend a couple hours with this delightful game. Metroidvanias have come a long way since the early days of Metroid and Castlevania, and thankfully, fans of the genre have plenty of incredible indie options to choose from, and this list has plenty of them as well, with Axiom Verge taking us into the top 40. I knew I was going to love this game from the second I heard the first notes of the main theme in its announcement trailer, and it certainly didn't disappoint. Of all the gameplay mechanics this game introduced, the most fascinating were all of the various glitch mechanics, making it almost feel like you were breaking the game to progress forward. Very slick and original stuff to my Metroidvania brain. I typically find time limits in games pretty annoying. I mean, they're fine, but I usually like to take my time with games. But when I heard you have literally 1 minute to beat minute, I was smitten with intrigue. How does one beat a game in just 1 minute? Well, you kinda actually beat it in a bunch of minutes, but this little fella has 1 minute to achieve as much as possible before it succumbs to its timely death. It's a delightfully silly and addicting concept. And the music? Durr. So if you've got a minute to spare, check this little gem out. There are a number of games on this list where I had to stop and think, how the heck does somebody come up with this stuff? Which is typically followed by, and how the heck was I ever supposed to figure that out? On the surface, that sounds like a critique, but games like Fez are so fascinating, I don't even care that I'm not observant enough to solve a majority of the puzzles in the game without using a guide. Fez's combination of perspective puzzles, gorgeous pixel art, and a wildly perfect soundtrack from Disaster Piece makes for some of the best video game vibes I've ever experienced. And speaking of perfect video game vibes, Narita Boy certainly brings the vibes. I mean, just look at this thing. Among the many reasons I love indie games is the developer's freedom to create some incredible art styles. And Narita Boy is littered with style. Littered! The 80s nostalgia is strong with this one, while bringing a surprisingly poignant story along for the ride. Grab your Techno Sword and get swinging, Narita Boy! Spoiler alert, this is one of only 2 roguelikes that made the list, and if you know anything about me, you probably already know what the other one is. But for now, we have the wildly great Cult of the Lamb. Who knew these adorable, fluffy sheep bebes are so good at culting and murdering, and making it so dang fun to jam to sheep rock banger after banger? You can choose to be a forgiving, loving cult leader, or keep the streak of sacrificial lambs alive and well for the benefit of the cult. Regardless which method you choose, you still get the opportunity to cause copious amounts of lanolin mayhem. A real delight this one is. And speaking of delights, I had a pretty good feeling I was going to be on board with Stray, and I'm happy to report that I was very on board. Even though I'm very not on board with cats in real life. Bunch of weirdos, that lot! But this little feline takes you on a beautiful adventure through a steampunkified future where robots and artificial intelligence try their darndest to keep this stray cat at bay. Just trying to get back to my family, guys. God! And speaking of steampunk robot adventures, Machinarium is a delightful indie adventure game just loaded with personality. Quirky characters, quirky environments, quirky puzzles, quirky everything make every scene a treat to solve. The art style was absolutely the reason I initially dove into this adventure, but holy smokes, I wasn't expecting to love the gameplay as much as I did. Oh, and the music? Durr! Like every game in this list, it really does deliver the whole package in a unique way. A quirky way at that! My goodness, this game is just so silly. In Young Horse's follow-up to 2014's Octodad, you play a reporter tasked with the assignment to investigate various forms of shenanigans that have been occurring on Snacktooth Island. What happened to Lizbert? What are bug snacks and where do they come from? But most of all, why do they taste so good? In bug snacks, you literally are what you eat, and on Snacktooth, there are many ways to eat. I have a little bit of a soft spot for this PS5 launch title, as it's one of the few games my daughter and I have played together. And we're still playing it over 5 years later. Gosh, I'm hungry! There was a good 5 to 6 year period in my life where I wasn't really playing video games at home. Mobile gaming became my escape whilst commuting on the train to and from work. The sheer amount of mobile games is a bit daunting, so when a gem like Super Brothers comes into your life, it is a breath of fresh air. After playing endless runner after endless runner, Sword and Sorcery brought the vibes I didn't know I needed in a game, and it was my first introduction to sweet Jim Guthrie. You can imagine just how damn pleased I was to luxuriate in that world. And then probably right back to another endless runner to get an even higher score. When I heard the main gameplay designer from the team who made Limbo and Inside was making a new game under a new developer, it was instantly a yep, absolutely gonna buy that immediately moment. The idea of literally carrying entire worlds on your back and taking them into other worlds and then having multiple worlds interact with each other sounds a bit trippy. And it is, and it's fascinating. Cocoon is a pretty dang perfect puzzle platformer and a huge shift from the gloomy vibes of Limbo and Inside. Selfishly, I just wish the game had a little more of a memorable soundtrack. Don't get me wrong, it's lovely, but for the most part, it's just kinda there. But thankfully, everything else about this game is top tier. Taking us into the top 30 is 2021's Death's Door. This delightful Zelda-like does not mess around. A majority of the games on this list are on the easier side, but this little beerb game really packs a punch if you're not ready for it, and I certainly wasn't. As someone who finds beerbs to be the most annoying and wretched of all real-life creatures, I really didn't mind dying over and over. You're a beerb. You definitely had it coming for one reason or another, but you press on and die some more. But what a lovely death journey it is. If you're looking for an answer to the question, are video games art? Look no further than Grease. I mean, holy smokes. I've had many cinematic experiences in indie games, but this one may take the cake. The amount of sit there with your jaw dropped moments in this game would melt any skeptic's heart. It's just so freaking beautiful, and so freaking fun to play, with some really freaking great tunes from Berlinist. If you're watching this video, you're probably already on team games are art. And if anyone ever gives you any guff about it, just point them to Grease. They'll learn. They'll learn. Well, if it is an animal well, and this well is seriously one swell well. The next Metroidvania making the list is probably also the most unique of them all. With its wild items and gameplay mechanics, this one can really make you think. And my derpy 40-year-old brain certainly wasn't up to the task of solving every puzzle to 100% this indie gem. But even when spoiling the solutions for myself, I still gasped with delight. I mean, this game has some seriously cool things going on. Indie games, guys! Dialogue-heavy adventure games used to be a big part of my life, having grown up during LucasArts' heyday and playing the likes of The Secret of Monkey Island, Loom, Sam & Max Hit the Road, and Full Throttle. But there was a good 20-year gap where I didn't play any, until Oxenfree broadcast itself into my life. And gosh, who knew that radio frequencies could be so dang unsettling? Pretty much every adventure game I had played up to this point leaned way more into comedic content, so I was a bit surprised at the amount of suspense and horror Oxenfree brought to the table, and I loved every second of it. Tune your radios to this indie station, dear listener. You're in for a spooky treat with this one. I'm gonna be honest. I don't really know how to explain this one, so I'll let the official App Store description do the talking. Device 6 is a surreal thriller in which the written word is your map as well as your narrator. It's easily the most unique puzzle game I've ever played, and it just needs to be experienced. I never thought a game made for the iPad would hook me as much as this little gem did. And honestly, I don't remember who Sweet Anna even is, but I've heard she's one in a million. And just like that, we're at the halfway point, folks. Coming in at number 25 is the second That Game Company release. After the success of Flow, That Game Company seriously pushed the ambition pedal to the metal with Flower. Or is it pedal to the petal? Anyways, this game is just so dang pleasant. Picking up pedal after pedal, growing your little pedal tornado bit by bit, bringing back life to the environment around you, all while being treated to some of the most blissful video game music in any game ever. It's the kind of thing I'd consider a real delight. If Grease wasn't a compelling enough argument to solidify that games can be art, then look no further than Kentucky Route Zero. I've already talked about various gaming vibes in this list, but I think it's pretty safe to say that this game has the most vibiest of vibes. This game basically is vibes. Almost more of a visual novel than a traditional game, and as you can hear, has some of the most vibiest modern video game soundtracks out there. I truly hope someone made David Lynch play this game before he passed. And if you're a fan of Lynch's work, particularly Twin Peaks, Kentucky Route Zero will absolutely be for you. Coming in at number 23 is Sweet Dave the Diver. What starts as an underwater exploration roguelite, tasking Dave to gather ingredients to supply his employer at the local sushi shop restaurant for the night's shift, Dave the Diver quickly reveals that it is so much more than that. Diving deeper and deeper into the blue hole, Dave reveals all kinds of treats, including giant ancient creatures, old shipwrecks, and even an entire race of reclusive mermaids and mermen. With its healthy amount of missions, minigames, and collectibles, Dave the Diver keeps the gameplay fresh and engaging throughout its entire playtime. If you haven't played Dave, I highly encourage you to dive right in. My goodness, does this game sound delicious or what? Guacamelee is yet another top-tier Metroidvania to make this list, and this one has a lot of soul. And a lot of souls at that. Taking place in both the land of the living and of the dead, developer Drinkbox Studio created an action platformer set in a magical world inspired by traditional Mexican culture and folklore. It's fun, it's colorful, it's fast, and it doesn't take itself too seriously the entire way. Just listen to these horns. I love this game. And now I just really want some tacos. Okay, well, if both Grease and Kentucky Route Zero weren't compelling enough arguments to solidify that games can be art, then maybe Neva will be the game to convince any skeptics. Because, boing! This game will have you saying, "Hey Art!" before you even know how to properly pronounce your adorable pupper's name. Nomada Studios' Neva brings all the visual soul of Grease while turning up the action and combat throughout, giving Neva a bit more meat gameplay-wise than its predecessor. With its gorgeous landscapes, sleek animations, and another beautiful soundtrack by Berlinist, Neva was easily my favorite indie release of 2024, and it nearly landed a spot in my top 20, which just so happens to be coming up next. I don't know about you guys, but I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my bike all day and all night. I want to ride my bike. Knights and Bikes is a delightful action-adventure game with a poignant story about family, friendship, and dealing with the grief of losing a loved one. This was actually the first game I ever finished with my daughter from start to finish, so obviously it's going to get some bonus points from me. Knights and Bikes has all the right things going for it, so much so that it caught the interest of the team at Double Fine Productions to handle publishing duties, as if I needed another reason to love Tim Schafer. Gah! Okay, time to ride my bike. Bye! An entire county made entirely out of donuts? Sign me up! Okay, well, no, it's not that, but donut deliveries are definitely involved in Donut County. You won't be delivering said donuts personally, mind you. Instead, you'll be shacking up in a massive sinkhole with your fellow citizens, recounting how a pack of wild raccoons let the whole damn town go straight to hell, with literal hellholes. It is such a silly and wonderful time wreaking havoc throughout the county. I knew I was going to love Bastion after about 15 seconds of playing it. I can't remember a game before Bastion that had an audible narrator actually narrating the actions of the game as they play out. When I walked off a ledge, plummeting to certain doom, the narrator chimes in with, "The kid falls to his death," only to see me crash back to the ground safely from the top of the screen. The narrator casually responds, "Nah, I'm just kidding." And I was hooked. It was literally all I needed. And thankfully, the entire game is pretty damn perfect on all fronts. And let's obviously not forget that this was everyone's first chance to hear sweet Darren Korb make a video game soundtrack. This should probably be in the top 10 for that reason alone. A rat, an egg, a ranger, a guard, a horse, a magician, a slug, a bodybuilder, a turtle, a zombie, a mermaid, a ghost, a monk, a rogue, a robot, a necromancer, and a dragon. These are all the delightful forms you can become in Nobody Saves the World. Oh, and a nobody. That's right, you play as a nobody in Nobody Saves the World. But does this nobody save the world? I mean, the title is Nobody Saves the World, so I'll let you decide. Oh, and one of the bad guys in this game is named Randy. So of course this game was gonna make the list. Hey, I got a message for you. If you're a fan of the OG Ninja Gaiden or Shinobi games, stop what you're doing right now and go play The Messenger. And if you're not a fan of the OG Ninja Gaiden or Shinobi games, stop what you're doing right now and go play The Messenger. Okay, wait until this countdown is over, but then stop what you're doing and go play The Messenger. Sabotage Studios' first release is an absolutely perfect action platformer with a little bit of Metroidvania sprinkled in just for good measure. The time warp mechanic makes for some very entertaining gameplay, and the fact that it gave us 2 versions of the fantastic soundtrack is the cherry on top of this ninja cake. So remember, after this countdown, stop what you're doing and go play The Messenger. Coming in at number 15 is probably the most difficult game on this list. Hotline Miami 2 definitely does not mess around. Both Hotlines are pretty much perfect games, but I gotta give a little more love to the second entry only because it gives you less to work with. Unlocking the various masks gives you different abilities based on your playstyle, but there are less to unlock in 2. And I prefer this because it forces you to just get better at the game with the basic mechanics it presents. A get good kind of game, if you will. And I did. And the wildly great soundtrack? Durr. Really gets you in the mood to blow away all those super rude bad guys. Gah. Oh, Hyperlight Drifter, you beautiful beast, you. This melancholy action-adventure has such a unique feel to it. Developed by the small team at Heart Machine, Hyperlight Drifter is the creation of Alex Preston. Preston was born with congenital heart disease, which is basically like being born with a ticking time bomb strapped to your chest without a timer. The theme and story for the game, featuring a protagonist suffering from a terminal disease, is meant as a simile for his own health. But through that suffering, you zip around and completely decimate hordes of enemies and some of the coolest boss fights in any indie game ever. Preston described it as a combination of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and Diablo. And with A Link to the Past being my second favorite game of all time, there was a pretty good chance I was gonna love this game. And clearly, I really did. Following the release of the incredibly pleasant Abzu, Giant Squid felt it was time to turn it up to 11 with its second game, The Pathless. This action-adventure gem will have you singing zippity-doo-dah in no time. The movement mechanic in The Pathless is a classic, easy-to-learn, difficult-to-master system. Timing arrow shots for speed boosts is one of the most addicting and rewarding gameplay mechanics that I've had the pleasure of experiencing in some time. Coupled with a well-crafted, open-ish world, some of the coolest boss battles in any modern game, and of course, sweet, sweet Austin Wintory's glorious score, The Pathless is a perfect example of how incredibly epic indie games can be. Speaking of incredibly epic indie games, Super Stickman Golf 3 is really not that at all. But holy smokes, is it epically addicting. I know it's probably a little surprising to see this casual mobile game so high on the list, but it's the indie game that I've easily put the most time into. I've played the daily race pretty much every single day since its release nearly 9 years ago, completed 848 multiplayer matches, and mastered every course this gem has to offer. It's just some real good clean fun, and it plays perfectly. And I already can't wait to play it tomorrow morning! Every once in a while, a game comes into my life where I wish I could go full eternal sunshine in my own brain and erase my memory of ever playing it, just so I can experience it again for the first time. Tunic is very much one of those games. I've never been one to jot down notes while gaming, but Tunic had me looking like Charlie from Always Sunny in the mailroom with all the pages I had scribbled upon. This Zelda clone takes you on a delightful adventure and over time reveals the true meat of the game. And it's some real tasty meat that you didn't even know you needed. I won't give away the twists and turns that this game takes, because it really is something you just need to experience. Tunic exceeded all my expectations and introduced new ways to experience video games in general. Quite a feat for such a cute little fox. Time to get serious, folks! It's top 10 time! And kicking it off is the absolutely adorable Unravel. This list has been packed with top-tier side-scrollers, with more to come. But the look and feel of Unravel sucked me in immediately. There isn't a single frame in this game that isn't beautiful. It's a perfect balance of platforming and puzzle solving, with a wildly great soundtrack that pulls you into Yarny's lovely little world. I almost went with its sequel, as it introduced a co-op mode that I played the living heck out of with my daughter, but the initial impact of the OG is just too strong. Like all the remaining entries on this list, Unravel is a perfect game, and one that I plan to revisit often. Everybody needs to get away from it all every once in a while. And I got to admit, taking a job as a fire lookout at Shoshone National Park in Wyoming sounds like a pretty good way to do it. In Firewatch, you play as Henry, a guy looking to get away from it all after his wife is diagnosed with early onset dementia. Already sounds like a real upper, huh? Shortly after you arrive at your post, you meet Delilah, your only contact in the vast wilderness via a walkie-talkie. What starts out as a seemingly chill way to spend your summer slowly turns into a dark, brooding mystery, making the wide open environment feel more and more claustrophobic with each passing day. Firewatch has a vibe and tone that has to be experienced to fully get why it's so great. You never really fully relax during your time in the wild, and that's what makes it so dang cool. Boy, speaking of games filled with dread, have you guys ever played Inside? Sheesh! The Dread! Developer Playdead followed up the equally gloomy Limbo with an unsettling platform puzzler that creeps into your psyche and doesn't let go. Typically, when I recommend a game to someone, I'll pick a game that's great from beginning to end, and Inside certainly is great from beginning to end. But, my goodness, I was not prepared for how this game ends. I nearly had to replace my entire jaw after it dropped to the floor for a good half hour. It is so wild and wacky and kinda sad. It is an experience I will never forget. So if you're looking for some real good dread, look no further than Inside. The trials of life can feel a lot like ascending a mountain. Exhausting, treacherous, laden with tribulations. But if you keep pushing, keep ascending, keep fighting, oftentimes you'll find something beautiful at the top. And in the case of Celeste, you'll also be dying. A lot. Like over and over and over and over and over, but oh man, it loads so fast and you try again and again and again and you slowly chip away at probably the best feeling side-scroller ever made. Oh my gosh, that's so much fun! This game is so ridiculously well made, with some of the tightest controls in any game ever. With all her precise jumping and zipping around, it's easy to understand why Sweet Celeste is so burnt out. It's hard to life sometimes, especially when you keep dying over and 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 over. In case Celeste's gameplay wasn't precise enough for you, how about a 1-2 power punch of precision with Cyber Shadow? This to me is the gold standard for modern indie side-scrollers. It has a tiny edge over Celeste because in Cyber Shadow, you get to hit things. Yeah, hitting things! Get over here, little fella! Bonk! You can hit things real good and real fast, and honestly, it's why I love the game so much. When you hit the attack button, you attack. No winding up your sword for a few frames, then attacking, or lunging forward, or any of that nonsense. Push button, enemy dead. I also just want to mention that there are only 5 games in the top 25 that don't have vinyl releases for their soundtracks, and Cyber Shadow is one of them. Pretty frustrating thing, really. Regardless, all hail the GOAT of indie side-scrollers. What can I say about Undertale that hasn't already been said? Growing up playing a whole bunch of JRPGs, somehow I never played Earthbound or anything from the Mother series. So when Undertale came into my life, I had never really played an RPG like it. Cut to a few years later, I finally play Earthbound and oh, okay, Toby Fox definitely loved Earthbound. And what a blessing. Undertale is unquestionably the most hilarious game on this list. The writing, the characters, and oh my lord, the music. And playing through a pacifist run in this game almost, just almost gave me hope that there is still good in humanity. It's something that just has to be experienced. What an absolute masterpiece. And at long last, we've reached Sea of Nars. Holy smokes, when I heard Sabotage Studios was making a prequel to The Messenger, and that prequel was going to be in the style of a 16-bit JRPG, and that it was specifically going to be an homage to Chrono Trigger, you can say I got pretty excited. In case I haven't made it abundantly clear, Chrono Trigger is my favorite game of all time. And now, Sea of Stars is absolutely one of my favorite games of all time. My goodness, did those sabotagers develop this game with incredible care. And to sweeten the deal, they even got Chrono Trigger composer Yasunori Mitsuda to kick out a few tracks for it. But I'll tell you what, it's Eric W. Brown's soundtrack that really brings this whole game together. And I'm not even going to go into this game giving me a top 3 all-time video game cries. Nope, not going to do it. I'll have my video game cries in my own time, thank you very much. Okay, if I'm being honest, this may actually be the best game on the list. On the surface, Outer Wilds is a super casual space exploration adventure game. But if you dive a bit deeper, you'll find that Outer Wilds is a super casual space exploration adventure game that will absolutely change you forever when you find it's not just a super casual space exploration adventure game. Outer Wilds is the ultimate you can only experience it once game. Even more than Tunic, I really wish I could get a memory do-over on this one. And speaking of top 3 video game cries, after spending dozens of hours uncovering hundreds of pieces of lore, learning the various rules of physics puzzles, and chipping away at objectives bit by bit, planet by planet without really having a sense of what the final goal is, it all comes together in an ending that absolutely staggered me. I know this game won't be for everyone, but I really wish it was. Because everyone should take the time to get lost in space for a bit, and maybe come out a changed person by its end. Upon your first death in Hades, you're greeted with the ominous promise, there is no escape. Upon your 101st death, you're greeted with the same promise, because in Hades, there really is no escape. And honestly, I'm really okay with that, because why would I want to escape from a game that literally does everything perfectly? Supergiant's masterpiece hooked me so much more than I ever expected. It is the roguelike that I will forever compare roguelikes to. The main reason being the way it handles progression. There is never a wasted run in Hades. Whether you get all the way to have a spirited throwdown with Dad, or meet an early end in the depths of Tartarus, something always progresses Zagreus forward. Whether it's a stat upgrade or yet another attempt to swoon sweet Megara, each trip back to the House of Hades is a delight. There is no escape, but thankfully, there is a whole heck of a lot of fun to be had. And Darren Korb! We did it, guys! We made it to the tippy top. And my goodness, what a journey it has been getting here. That game company's third and final PlayStation exclusive, to me, is the crown jewel of indie games. While Hades, Celeste, and so many other games in this list have perfected every aspect of video gaming, it's Journey's emotional weight that puts it handily above every other entry. No text, no spoken words, no combat. Just you, the mountain ahead, and the metaphorical trials in the journey of life. And, of course, Austin Wintory's unbelievably inspiring and heartbreaking score. It's the #1 game cry, guys. The game cry to start all game cries. It's a perfect game, and a journey that I will truly never forget. So there it is, my top 50 indie games of all time. There are obviously so many more wildly great indie games that aren't in this list, and so many great ones to come. Thank you for going on this walk down memory lane with me. Each one of these games holds a special place in this aging man's soul. Who knows, maybe I'll do an updated top 50 in another 5 years. But for now, thank you for watching, and thank you for being a delight. I love it here.